is as per the instructions, as per the knowledge which I'm trying to accumulate from so many good devotees here in Damodar Desh as well as from outside. Uh, First and foremost thing, I would like to take the opportunity to thank you, Subal Prabhu, for establishing such a wonderful platform where there are so many stalwarts. One of them is you, who is taking this, this platform, uh, and where we share the knowledge, an attribute which grows while sharing. It is one of the best things. The knowledge increases when you share it. धन को अगर हम उसको बांटना शुरू कर देंगे, कोई ऐसा समय आ जाएगा कि धन समाप्त हो जाएगा, मगर ज्ञान एक ऐसी चीज है। प्रभु, हिंदी एंड इंग्लिश इज ओके, राइट?
Prabhu, English is preferable, but
Okay.
If you can keep Hindi to minimum, then that will be better.
Oh, that makes me, more comfortable while talking.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, Prabhu.
Yeah. The stalwarts are present here, and they are talking on the knowledge, sharing of knowledge, and this is one of an attribute towards which grows. The knowledge grows while sharing. And this reminds me, I'm just taking on off track before we go into the main class. This reminds me of a salesperson who had visited me many years back. He had come to sell me an encyclopedia. And during that time, this Google and all those things were not there. In fact, probably they were there, but not to such an extent that what we are using it today. So this guy who came to sell his encyclopedia to me, a set of it, one of the best things I have heard was narrated by him. And I distinctly remember it today even. Many must have heard it from me in my previous classes, but I just wanted to share so that if I keep, the instance, what had happened, reminds me every now and then, and just makes me, share whatever I have, whatever knowledge I have, whatever I gather, and I try to, share it with others. One of the other things was that, we were hearing a lecture from Sarvabhauma Prabhu, one of the very good speakers and very nice devotee. And Sarvabhauma Prabhu, he mentioned that, if I give a lecture of 1 hour, and if you go out and don't share that with somebody, first and foremost thing, the moment you go out, almost 25% is washed off because you don't remember each and every word which was narrated in the class. When you go and don't share it, so 75% you have it retained. But if that 75% is not shared immediately, you lose 50% out of it. And in a day or 2 days time, or maximum 3 days time, the entire 100% is lost. So the best thing would be whatever you have, whatever knowledge you have, if you want to remember that, if you want to retain that, please share it with others. So the example and which was shared by the guy, the salesperson came to sell an encyclopedia to me. Of course, I did not buy it because I was connected and I said the spiritual books are more important than buying an encyclopedia. But this guy, he left a mark on my mind in such a manner while narrating this one of the statements. He said the knowledge, whatever you are gathering and you share it with others, it will retain with you. And then he gave an example. He said, I have 100 rupees note. I'll keep it in front of you. And you have 100 rupees note. You keep 100 rupees note there. I take the note that you have kept on the desk and take it away with me. And you take the 100 rupees note which I kept and you take it away with you. Both of us are left with what? So obviously the answer I gave to him was, okay, both of us have got the 100 rupees. That's it. So he said, now, if you have a knowledge, if you have an idea, if you have one of the ideas, you keep your idea. And if I have an idea, I keep one of my idea, and both share the ideas. And when you go, what are you left with and what am I left with? So I said, I have 2 ideas. And he said, I also have 2 ideas. So similarly, whatever knowledge we gain, so this I try to implement, like whenever we get along with the devotees, I tell them, okay, this book I have read about Srila Prabhupada's quotes in them, and what have you read? So when he says that he has read another book and he shares, so it makes things more easier for me to understand in which book, what ideas and what topics are discussed. So coming back to today's topic, we'll just start, and we are studying, we are not reading from the Canto 1, chapter 9 of Srimad Bhagavatam. So we just start with Jaya Radha Madhava and then go ahead. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Brajajana Ranjana Jaya Yashoda Nandana Jaya Brajajana Ranjana Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Harinam Sankirtan ki jai Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki jai Shri Prabhupada ki jai Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Bol.
Prabhu, Prabhu, can you switch on your camera if you are okay?
Okay, let me just see.
People would love to see you. Thank you.
I don't know how I look. Okay, never mind.
You look like a devotee, Prabhu.
You look fantastic, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Dandavats, Prabhu. Because the illumination in the room is not that good, so I don't know whether it's reflecting in this on the screen or not. Nevertheless, it's okay.
No, it's perfect. It's perfect.
Hare Krishna. Okay, so now we just start the class. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naran Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vasam Tato Jayam Udiri. Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishta. Om Madhyamandasya Jnananjana Chalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruvin Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayyam Tatati Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatadishra Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Ram. Okay, so before we go on to today's shloka, let's just have some background of this chapter. So if you see, there are almost 49 shlokas, or in fact there are 49 shlokas in this chapter, And surprisingly, Srila Prabhupada has given only few lectures, and that too on 6 slokas. That is sloka number 1, 2, 3, 40, 48, and 49. But at the same time, the purpose of all the shlokas are so distinctly written that it makes you understand what exactly Srila Prabhupada and what the previous acharyas are trying to explain it to us. So, as all you know, the title of the chapter is Passing Away of Bhishma Dev in the Presence of Lord Krishna. Passing away is fine. You know, there are, whenever you're born, you are supposed to die. You will definitely die. But the important point, an important mention here is in the presence of Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna was physically present there in front of Bhishma Dev. To get ourselves into the scenes of Kurukshetra, there are the war is over, the Kurukshetra war is over. There are hundreds and thousands of dead bodies of men, animals, all scattered all over, and Maharaj Yudhishthira goes to the scene of massacre. These are exactly the words which have been written in the Bhagavatam. And Bhishma Dev is lying on the bed of arrows. Shloka 1 of this chapter starts with Sutovacha, Iti Bhita Praja Drohat. Suta Goswami said here, Yudhishthira Maharaj became afraid. If you are familiar with the word Bhita, usually this word is also used in many languages, in Hindi or also in Marathi. In Marathi, they said that Mala Bhiti Vartel, I'm afraid. So here, this Bhita is the Sanskrit word which means afraid. Now, who is afraid? Here, Yudhishthira Maharaj is afraid. Why is he afraid? So Srila Prabhupada first here has explained, he says that Yudhishthira Maharaj is thinking that he has killed so many people, and so many of them have died because of his decision while, to fight. So I have killed so many praja. Now we also know basically what our understanding is praja is usually used for human beings, but no, that's not praja. Srila Prabhupada explains the word praja. He says that pratyaksha, now prakrishta rupena is pra and ja is jayate. So just like every human being or human entity takes some birth somewhere, okay? So considering the nationalism, just like American nation. For example, in America, if suppose an Indian lady gives a birth to a child there, the child is entitled for an American nationality. And in the same way, now, for example, a child is born in India, he gets an Indian nationality. There, the child is in India as well as the child in America. He has 2 hands, 2 legs, everything is same. But why this nationality? So they say the nationality is to identify that this person has taken birth in this particular land. That is called praja. Now jayate, one who takes birth. So Srila Prabhupada explains this in such a nice manner, and then he says that even the trees, the animals, they are born in particular land. So even they are praja. So if you try, okay, what is the harm? We can just chop off one of the trees which is there in America. Will you be able to do that? No, you cannot. Why? Because then you will be judged and you will be prosecuted because this is property of America. So similarly, the animals which are born in America, they are American. So how does the scriptures allow you to, kill them? So even the animals, they are praja. So here Yudhishthira Maharaj, he is explaining that he is afraid so many of the animals have been killed, like horses, camels, even elephants, they have been killed in this massacre of the Kurukshetra. So he is afraid. Now, why is he afraid? See, you cannot instigate people to fight for you until you don't make them your enemy. You have to first instigate your people that the opposite, the people who are there in the opposite side, they are enemies. Then only they will be able to kill them. Then only that, the scene will be created. That kind of mindset will be created to kill. So now Yudhishthira Maharaj, after the war is over, he said that all these people who are left out, who are still there, they will be my enemies, because this is what has happened. So if I'm an enemy, I'm an enemy to them, how can I rule them? How will they be my, the people who are subordinate to me? How will they, understand my instructions? So when all these questions puzzled him, he decided to go to Bhishma Dev, who was lying on the arrow's bed before his death. Similarly, we see in this material world, whenever we are confused step by step, Srila Prabhupada very nicely explains in one of the lectures, he says that this is our position in the material world. At every step, there is some danger. And Prabhupada quotes the shloka, Padam Padam Vipadam. Padam Padam means every step, and Vipadam means danger. So what do we do? Srila Prabhupada says that in very sarcastically and very nicely he explains it. It is such a nice place. He says the material world is such a nice place. Why? Because in material world, at every step, you have vipada, you have danger. So when you are in danger, you try to remember the Lord, or you try to solve that problem. So this material world is, of course, a nice place, because if you are into trouble, then you try to find out the solution. And where do you go for the solutions? So therefore, the Vedic instructions are there. Because you are confused, because you do not know which path to follow, therefore you must approach a guru. You must. You cannot say that without going to guru, I shall chalk out my own path, I shall chalk out my own plans. No, that is not possible. So I'll just explain one of this. There's a Kut Shlok is mentioned while somebody is learning Sanskrit. There's a Kuta Shloka, and it's called Subhashit. In Sanskrit, it's called Subhashit. So there is a shloka which is many of the people who have joined the group, they must have heard about it. That Keshavam Patitam Drishtva Pandava Harsha Nirbhaya Rudanti Kaurava Sarve Ha Ha Keshava Keshava. Now, what does this mean? I'll just take it word by word, and then I'll explain the two meanings of the same shloka. Keshavam. Keshavam is Lord Keshava, that is Krishna. Patitam. Patitam, he fell down. Krishna fell down while getting down from the chariot. Krishna fell down. Keshavam Patitam Drishtva. Drishtva means to see. Keshavam Patitam Drishtva Pandava. Pandava means the Pandavas. Pandava Harsha Nirbhaya. They were harshit, they were happy to see that Krishna has fallen down. Rudanti Kaurava Sarve. All the Kauravas, they started crying. Rudanti Kaurava Sarve. Ha ha Keshava Keshava. They started beating their chest, saying, oh, Krishna has fallen down. Krishna has fallen down. Now, if you understand, if you give this instructions, or if suppose somebody is not very knowledgeable in Sanskrit, he will take this shloka as Keshava. Krishna has fallen down from the chariot, and Pandavas, they are happy. And Kaurava are crying that Krishna has fallen down. Krishna has fallen down. But when you approach a guru who knows, he will try to explain to you in a different manner, and he will say you how this is possible. So he says that Keshava, so he does the Sandhi Viched, in which K means water, and Shav everybody knows is a dead body. So Keshava, in the water, a dead body has fallen down. Keshava Patitam means fallen down. Drishtva, seeing this, a dead body falling down in a river. Keshavam Patitam Drishtva Pandava Harsha Nirbhaya. Here the Pandavas, a group of crows, कौवे जो होते हैं, crows, they are called Pandava in Sanskrit. The Pandavas, Harsh, Keshavam Patitam Dishwa, Pandava, Harshanim, sorry, Pandavas means a group of fishes. Pandava is group of fishes. So fishes are happy. Why? Because a dead body has fallen down and they are getting food. Pandava Harshanirva. Rudanti Kaurava Sarve. Rudanti means who are crying? The crows are crying because their food, the dead body is their food. Their food has lost and it has gone in the river. So when this only a guru will explain it. So this is the importance of guru. Whenever we are confused, we must approach guru. We must approach a person from, we must approach a friend. We must approach a guru, and they should be from the authentic sampradaya. This is very important. So now we are coming back to the point. Yudhishthira Maharaj was so much afraid that he had killed so many prajas. He knew that now still there is a superior person, my grandfather, who is lying on the bed of arrows. Let me go there. Then he goes there and he is asking. So let me go to Bhishma Dev. He can give instructions. What is the instructions? Sarva dharma. Dharma means the occupational duties. What are the occupational duties? So this we are going to understand from the shlokas of today. Now there are shlokas which we are trying to cover up today from 25 to 31 of this first canto, 9th chapter, shloka 25 to 31. So while going through this, there are a few points which I have noted down. There are a few questions which which came to my mind, and which while reading the purpose, and I jotted down these questions. These questions are answered in the purpose of Srila Prabhupada in this Srimad Bhagavatam. So first and foremost things, for example, in shloka number, I'll just first raise the questions so that when we are going through the purpose of this shlokas, we'll be able to connect them with whatever questions have been raised. In shloka number 25, 1925, Krishna is inspiring Yudhishthira. So why Krishna is inspiring Yudhishthira Maharaj to ask Bhishma Dev in presence of many great sages? This is the question which has been raised, and there are answers in the purport. In shloka number 26, there are questions that there are 4 questions. What is the conception of 4 castes and 4 orders of life, Varna and Ashrama, and why? What is the conception and why? Then who is a civilized person? That is answered in shloka number 26. Special qualities of Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. And the 4th one, why system of ashram dharma is designed. And we will also correlate what is happening today because we are not following the system, so what is happening. Now, then in shloka number 27, there are almost, you can say, 5 questions which I have designed. How are the people of 4 ashramas, they are managed? There has to be a management. How is the funding done? How are the things get done in the 4 ashramas? How they are managed? So this is explained in shloka number 27's purport. What used to be the activity of a king? This is explained. What are the duties of women and devotees? And the beautiful it is, and that how to control lust, anger, desire, avarice, and bewilderment. This is explained in the purport. Power of women and how they are controlled. What is the power of women and how they are controlled? And the last one is process of pleasing the Lord. The most important question, how to please the Lord. We are doing bhakti, but how to please the Lord, this is explained in this shloka number 27's purport. Then another question is, what should one learn from different incidents narrated in Vedas and Puranas? This is explained, and why. Why should we learn that? What should we learn and why should we learn? This is explained in the shloka number 28. So we'll start with shloka number 25. So I have 1 hour to go. Srimad Bhagavatam, shloka number 1925, first canto, 9th chapter, shloka number 25. Suto acha yudhishthira tat akarnya sayanam sarva panjare aprachat vividhan dharman rishinam cha miss cham, it's chanushrimritam. Okay, can somebody read the translation and the purport?
Sure, Prabhuji. Translation. Suta Goswami said, Maharaja Yudhishthira, after hearing Bhishmadeva speak in that appealing tone, asked him in the presence of all the great rishis about the essential principles of various religious duties. Purport. Bhishmadeva speaking in that appealing tone convinced Maharaja Yudhishthira that he was very soon passing away, and Maharaja Yudhishthira was inspired by Lord Sri Krishna to ask him of the principles of religion. Lord Sri Krishna inspired Maharaja Yudhishthira to ask Bhishmadeva in the presence of many great sages, indicating thereby that the Lord's devotee like Bhishmadeva, although apparently living as a worldly man, is far superior to many great sages, even Vyasadeva. Another point is that Bhishmadeva at that time was not only lying on deathbed of arrows, but was greatly aggrieved because of that state. One should not have asked him any question at that time, but Lord Sri Krishna wanted to prove that his pure devotees are always sound in body and mind by dint of spiritual enlightenment. And thus, in any circumstances, a devotee of the Lord is in perfect order to speak of the right way of life. Yudhishthira also preferred to solve his problematic questions by asking Bhishmadeva rather than ask anyone else present there who was seemingly more learned than Bhishmadeva. This all due to the arrangement of the great wheel carrier Lord Sri Krishna, who establishes the glories of his devotee. The father likes to see the son become more famous than himself. The Lord declares very emphatically that worship of his devotee is more valuable than the worship of the Lord himself.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. So now, as we decided, the question which I asked for this shloka, why Krishna inspired Yudhishthira Maharaj to ask Bhishmadev in the presence of many great sages. So in the purport it is mentioned that indicating thereby that the Lord's devotees like Bhishmadev, although apparently living as a worldly man, is far superior to many great sages. So see how nicely Srila Prabhupada has explained that, that in the purport. Now this is the first point, that Lord's devotee like Bhishmadev, although apparently living as a worldly man, Lord Bhishmadev, he was like, he was living like a worldly man, but he was a very great devotee. Then, and is far superior to many great sages. So we know that who's Bhishmadev? He is one of the Mahajans. Then the second point, another point is that Bhishmadev at that time was not only lying on deathbed of arrows, but was greatly grieved because of that state. His body was completely, not an inch was there, which was without the arrows. The full body was completely, the arrows passing through his body, and he was in great pain. But even in that great pain, Lord Shri Krishna, Bhagavan Krishna is asking Yudhishthira Maharaj to go and ask him. Why? Because here also, in this situation also, the Lord wants to glorify his devotee. This has been explained. Wanted to prove that his pure devotee are always sound in body and mind by the dint of spiritual enlightenment. And thus, in any circumstances, a devotee of Lord is in perfect order to speak of the right way of life. So in any situation, a devotee, whatever may be the situation, and such a grave situation, the entire body is pierced with arrows, Bhishmadev is in perfect senses to explain the right way of life. So with this, we can also correlate with the example of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada at the last, even at the last breath of his life, he was discussing Srimad Bhagavatam and he was giving instructions, giving lectures on Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is what the real devotee is, pure devotee of Lord. He will, in any situation, he will always glorify Lord, and he is there to understand and give the instructions to people. The Lord declares very emphatically that worship of his devotee is more valuable than the worship of the Lord himself. So this is also explained by one of the shlokas. What is that shloka in which the Lord says that I am not in the heart of the devotees. I am there where the devotees, I am not in Vaikuntha also. I am there where the devotees, they glorify me, and when the devotees, they are speaking about me, about this is what the Lord is saying that. And he always glorifies, the Lord always glorifies the devotees. Why? This is also explained in the purport itself, because when a father sees that his child has excelled in something which is far better than him, the father becomes more happy. So this is, these are the reasons which I could understand and share with you as to why Krishna inspired Yudhishthira Maharaj to ask Bhishma Dev in presence of many great saints. Okay, now we go to this next shloka, shloka number 1926. Okay. Purusha Swabhava Vihitan Yatha Varnam Yathashram Vairagya Ragopadhibhyam Amnathobhya Lakshana. Can somebody read the translation in purpose?
Prabhu, it is, yes. Sut
Thank you. Thank you, Prabhu.
Goswami said, Maharaj Yudhishthir, after hearing Bhishmadev speak in the appealing tone, asked him in the presence of all.
Prabhu, I'm reading the shloka number 26.
We need to move to
But on the screen it is 20. Yes.
Thank you.
I was confused. At
Yes.
Maharaja Yudhishthir's inquiry, Bhishmadev first defined all the classifications of castes and orders of life in terms of the individual's qualifications. Then he systematically, in twofold divisions, described counteraction by detachment and interaction by attachment. The conception of four castes and four orders of life as planned by the Lord himself, as per Bhagavad Gita 4.13, is to accelerate transcendental qualities of the individual person so that he may gradually realize his spiritual identity and thus act accordingly and to get free from material bondage or conditional life. In almost all the Puranas, the subject matter is described in the same spirit, and so also in the Mahabharata. It is also elaborately described by Bhishma Dev in the Shanti Parv, beginning from the 16th chapter. The Varnashram Dharma is prescribed for the civilized human being just to train him to successfully terminate human's life. Actually, something is coming on that. Self-realization is distinguished from the life of the lower animals engaged in eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating. Vishwadev advised for all human beings 9 qualifications: not to become angry, not to lie, to equally distribute wealth, to forgive, to beget children only by one legitimate wife, to be pure in mind and hygienic in body, not to be inimical towards anyone, to be simple, and to support servants or subordinates. One cannot be called a civilized person without acquiring the above mentioned preliminary qualities. Besides these, the Brahmanas, the intelligent men, the administrative men, the mercantile community, and the labor class must acquire special qualities in terms of the occupational duties mentioned in all the Vedic scriptures. For the intelligent men, controlling the senses is the most essential qualification. It is the basis of morality. Sex indulgence, even with a legitimate wife, must also be controlled, and thereby family control will automatically follow. An intelligent man abuses his great qualifications if he does not follow the Vedic way of life. This means he must seriously make his study of the Vedic literatures, especially of the Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. For learning Vedic knowledge, one must approach a person who is 100% engaged in the devotional service. He must not do things which are forbidden in the Shastras. A person cannot be a teacher if he drinks or smokes. In the modern system of education, and the teacher's academic qualification is taken into consideration without evaluation of his moral life. Therefore, the result of education is misuse of high intelligence in so many ways. The Kshatriyas, the member of the administrative class, is especially advised to give charity and not to accept charity in any circumstances. Modern administrators raise subscriptions for some political functions, but never give charity to the citizens in any state function. It is just the reverse of the injections of the Shastras. The administrative class must be well versed in the Shastras, but must not take to the profession of teachers. The administrators should never pretend to become non-violent and therefore thereby go to hell. When Arjuna wanted to become a non-violent coward on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, he was severely chastised by the Lord Krishna. The Lord degraded Arjuna at that time to the status of an uncivilized man for his avowed acceptance of the cult of non-violence. The administrative class must be personally trained in military education. Cowards should not be elevated to the presidential throne by dint of the numerical votes only. The monarchs were all chivalrous personalities, and therefore monarchy should be maintained, provided the monarch is regularly trained in the occupational duties of a king. In fighting, the king or the president should never return home without being hurt by the enemy. The so-called king of today never visits the warfield. He is very much expert in artificially encouraging the fighting strength in the hope of the false national prestige. As soon as the administrative class is turned into a gang of mercantile and labor men, so just raise it a little. As soon as the administrative class is turned into a gang of mercantile and laborer men, the whole machinery of government becomes polluted. The Vaishyas, the members of the mercantile communities are especially advised to protect the cows. Cow protection means increasing the milk productions, namely curd and butter. Agriculture and distribution of foodstuffs are the primary duties of the mercantile community, backed by education in Vedic knowledge and trained in to give in charity. As the Kshatriyas were given charge of the protection of the citizens, Vaishyas were given the charge of the protection of the animals. Animals are never meant to be killed. Killing of an animal is a symptom of barbarian society. For a human being, agriculture produce, fruits, and milk are sufficient and compatible foodstuffs. The human society should give more attention to animal protection. The productive energy of the laborer is misused when he is occupied by industrial enterprises. Industry of various types cannot produce the essential needs of a man, namely rice, wheat, grains, milk, fruits, and vegetables. The production of machines and machine tools increases the artificial living fashion of a class of vested interests and keeps thousands of men in starvation and unrest. This should not be the standard of civilization. Further up, please. The Shudra class is less intelligent and should have no independence. They are meant for rendering sincere service to the three higher sections of the society. The Shudra class can attain all comforts of the life simply by rendering service to the higher classes. It is especially enjoined that should Shudra should never bank money. As soon as the Shudras accumulate wealth, it will be misused for sinful activities in wine, women, and gambling. Wine, women, and gambling indicate that the population is degraded to less than a Shudra quality. The higher caste should always look after the maintenance of the Shudras, and they should provide them with old and used garments. A Shudra should not leave his master when the master is old and invalid, and the master should keep the servant satisfied in all respects. The Shudras must first of all be satisfied by some sumptuous food and clothing before any sacrifice is performed. In this age, so many functions are held by spending millions, but the poor laborer is not sumptuously fed or given charity, clothing, etc. The laborers are thus dissatisfied, and so they make agitation. The varnas are, so to speak, classification of different occupations, and ashram dharma is gradually progress on the path of self-realization. Both are interrelated, and one is dependent on the other. The main purpose of ashram dharma is to awaken knowledge and detachment. The ashrama is the training ground for the prospective candidates. In this ashrama, it is expected that this material world is not actually the home of the living being. The conditioned souls under material bondage are prisoners of matter, and therefore self-realization is the ultimate aim of life. The whole system of ashram dharma is a means of detachment. One who fails to assimilate this spirit of detachment is allowed to enter into family life with the same spirit of detachment. Therefore, one who fails to assimilate this spirit of detachment is allowed to enter into the family life with the same spirit of detachment. Therefore, one who attains detachment may at once adopt the fourth order, namely the renounce, and thus live on the charity only not to accumulate wealth, but just to keep body and soul together for ultimate realization. Household life is for one who is attached, and the Vanplus and sannyas orders of the life are those who are for those who are detached from the material life. The brahmachari ashram is always meant for training both the attached and detached. Further up.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Very big purport, but there are so many important points, especially when you see that, especially I can correlate this instance with me. I used to think why there's a requirement of 4 ashrams and 4 varnas. What is the need of it? But when you read this purport and you try to understand in a deeper sense, you'll be able to understand what exactly Srila Prabhupada is trying to inform us and what is the need of it. Now, for example, where the first question which I asked for this particular shloka, shloka number 26, is that what is the conception of 4 castes? That is Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, and 4 orders, Brahmachari, Grastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas of life, and why? The conception of 4 castes and 4 orders of life is planned by the Lord himself, Guna, Karma, Vibhagaja. Now, that's mentioned in 4.13 of Bhagavad Gita, and is to accelerate the transcendental qualities of the individual. That means the Guna and Karma are there. Guna is there already. From his previous birth, he has already accumulated the gunas. Now, how to accelerate? This has to be identified, and that particular person has to be put in that particular slot. So, is to accelerate transcendental qualities. He already has a transcendental qualities, which this has to be activated. And once this is activated, the accelerated transcendental qualities of the individual person, so that he may gradually realize his spiritual identity. There are people who immediately, once they hear, they understand, and they say, oh yeah, this I had to progress from here, I had to do this. And there are people in spite of hearing so many times, they don't understand. So this is, you have to put them in the right bracket, and then these people, they will accelerate in the transcendental qualities will be accelerated, and they will generally gradually they will move ahead in the spiritual end, and thus get according to and get free from the material bondage of conditioned life. And what is the reason why the spiritual identity, he realizes his spiritual identity, why he has to progress? Because then after that only he can get free from the material bondage of conditional life. That is one reason that these 4 castes and 4 orders, were done, then what is the purpose? The Varnashram Dharma is prescribed for civilized human beings just to train him to successfully terminate human life. See, Prabhupada has very specifically mentioned just to terminate his human life. That means once everybody's life, whosoever is there, his life, he is going to die. But then how to successfully terminate his human life? For that, Varnashram Dharma is prescribed. And then Srila Prabhupada used to mention why, you have to train these people to successfully terminate human life. So there is, Srila Prabhupada always used to mention that this material world is like a toilet. So you don't sit in the toilet throughout the day. You don't sit in the toilet for your lifetime. This is a shitty place. This is a dirty place. You have to just move out of it as you move out of the toilet. You finish your job in the toilet and you just move out. So similarly, the material world is not a place to establish a permanent residence here. And to do that, that means to terminate in a successful manner, what you have to do is you have to take up the spiritual activity so that you can move out of this toilet. So to move out of this toilet means not to come back to this material world where birth, old age, disease, and death, they are permanent. So you have to go to such a higher platform, higher planet, where there's no point of return. Even if you go to Vaikuntha, even if you go to Brahmaloka, even if you go to Shivloka, you have to come back. Because once, even if you go to the, in the material, you pass out of the material world and you go to the higher planets. But if you don't go to Goloka or you don't go to Vaikuntha, you have to come back. So you have to ensure that you take the ticket, one-way ticket, and you be there. And for doing that, you have to see that you leave this toilet, the material world, because otherwise, if you're thinking of staying here permanently, you'll have to take birth. It will be old age, death, disease. Again, it will be repeated: birth, old age, death, and disease. So you have to go back home, back to Godhead, so that you do not return to this toilet or to this material world. So this is one of the now. In the second question which was raised is, who is a civilized person? So even before getting into the Varna and Ashrama person, even before getting into, see how specifically it's mentioned, even if it is, you are supposed to go into Varna or Ashrama, a person has to be civilized. Usko sabhya banna padta hai. Sabhya banne ke liye kya banna hai? That Bhishma Dev advises all the human beings. You cannot even enter a Varna or Ashrama unless you are civilized. So how to become civilized? First, he has given 9 points here. First is not to become angry. Don't get agitated. Not to lie. Jhoot nahi bolna hai. To equally distribute wealth. Nobody will do that in the present scenario. To forgive. To beget children only by one's legitimate wife. To be pure in mind and hygienic in body. Not to be unfriendly towards anyone, amicable. Not to be unfriendly towards anyone. To be simple and to support servants of subordinate. One cannot be called a civilized person without acquiring the above mentioned preliminary qualities. So where do we stand when we just go through all these 9 steps? Where do we stand? This is our self-study, that are we civilized? When we call them, we are wearing a jacket of Gucci and we are presenting ourselves that, oh, I'm so dressed up in a nice manner, I'm civilized. Do you call those people if civilized when you have these 9 attributes towards you, attributes and adjective towards you? No, you cannot be called civilized, because this is what Shastra says. So this reminds me of the statement given by a great scientist. The name is Albert Einstein. Like when Albert Einstein, he was asked that, how do you level an intellect? So he said there are 5 steps. So he, so I am going explaining in a way, like what he gave the, stance for those kind of people. If the person is, these are 5 ratings. So Albert Einstein, when he was asked, like, give the levels of an intellect. So he said, okay. They said, where does a smart person stand? So he says, from the rating of 1 and 5, he's on 5. Then they ask, if where does an intelligent person stands? A बुद्धिमान, smart यानी होशियार. होशियार कहाँ पर ठहरता है? ये आपके पायदान के अंदर. तो वो लोग 5वें कदम पर, यानी on the 5th step. Okay, where does a intelligent, बुद्धिमान कहाँ खड़ा रहता है? तो बोला 4थे स्टेप के ऊपर, 4थे पायदान के ऊपर होता है. अच्छा, where does a brilliant, बहुत शानदार है, वो कहाँ पर रहता है? बोला वो 3रे स्थान पर है. तो बोला जो एकदम प्रतिभाशाली है, जीनियस है, वो कहाँ रहता है? तो बोला 2nd स्टेप के ऊपर. तो बोला यानी 1st स्टेप पे कौन है? तो you will be surprised. Albert Einstein said, a simple, very सरल जो भाव स्वभाव वाला बंदा रहता है, he is the one, he's on the top level. So similarly, if you see here, if you see the 9 stages, on the 8th stages where Bhishma Dev say that the person has to be simple. यानी तुम्हारे अंदर जब ये 6-7 क्वालिटीज होंगी तब तुम जाके सिंपल बनोगे. और सिंपल होने के बाद में आपको क्या करना है? After you have become the, you have acquired the quality of the simple person, the simplicity. Then only you will be able to support and support your servants and subordinates. जब तक आपके अंदर जो, until unless you don't have the 7 qualities, you will not become simple. And if you are not simple, you cannot support your servants or the subordinates. But this is what is which I could correlate when I read about Albert Einstein. He said the smart is on the 5th step, intelligent is on the 4th step, brilliant is on the 3rd step, genius is on the 2nd step, but a simple person is on the 1st step. He's on the top. So simple even transcends genius. Besides these, now we will see the Brahmanas, the intelligent man, the administrative man, which is Kshatriya, the mercantile community, the Vaishya, and the laborer, Shudra, must require special qualities in terms of occupational duties mentioned in all the Vedic scriptures. This is mentioned. The qualities of an intelligent man, Brahmanas. What Brahmanas should acquire? First and foremost thing is mentioned that they should have controlling the senses, the most essential qualification for a Brahmana. He should control his senses. It is a basic morality. Sex indulgence, even with a legitimate wife, must also be controlled, and thereby family control will automatically follow. So see how clearly it is mentioned that even the family planning, Prabhupada has addressed to that. It is automatically follows if you are controlling your senses. And an intelligent man abuses his great qualification if he does not follow the Vedic way of life. This means he must seriously make study of Vedic literature, especially of Srimad Bhagavatam and Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So for all of them, if you see, for all of them, studies of the Vedic literatures is mandatory. For learning Vedic knowledge, now how to learn Vedic knowledge? So if you remember the shloka which I mentioned earlier at the beginning of my class, like Keshavam patitam drishtva pandava harsha nirbhaya rudanti kaurava sarve ha ha Keshava Keshava. If you remember that shloka, you will definitely know that you have to get in touch with a guru which is from the sampradaya, from the sampradaya, from the 4 authentic sampradayas. So you have to first get in touch with a person who is sent person engaged in devotional service, and that's cool. He must not do things which are forbidden in the Shastra. So we know that. We know that, whenever there are so many so-called bogus gurus, and gradually, or we come to know that this person was doing this kind of nonsenses, and that's the reason he is gone behind bar and more. So you have to be very, very particular in identifying your guru, and to do that, you have to take the help of your mentors who are connected in the sampradaya, so that they can give you guidance as to which guru or to which sampradaya you should follow. So this is basically given here. Then we have the Kshatriyas. What are the Kshatriyas supposed to do? They are advised to give charity, not to take charity. Now, are the Kshatriyas doing that? Are the Kshatriyas doing in the modern administration system? No. Everybody is just asked, he wants to accumulate money. He wants to do extortion. He wants to do this. The administrative class must be well versed in Shastras. Again, see here it's mentioned that this class, the Kshatriyas, they must be well versed with Shastras. Okay, the administrator should never pretend to become non-violent and thereby go to hell. So here also the example of Arjuna is given, that Arjuna, when he said that he doesn't want to fight, Krishna made him understand, and he took up to fighting. The administrative class must be personally trained in military education. If you compare with the present world, are they doing it? No. There are instructions given by president, there are instructions given by the ministers, and who are not even going to the war front. So here, as per Shastras, they should be trained in the military education, so they know where the shoe pinches, what are the shortcomings, what are the difficulties faced by the soldiers in front, in the forefront. Then only they will realize that. How will they realize? So this is basically required. Cowards should not be elevated to presidential throne, of course. Why should the cowards be given? Because if the cowards are there, what will happen? Everything will fall down. In the fighting, the king or the president should never return home without being hurt by the enemy. Kshatriyas, the king is there, or in the present scenario, the president is there, he should go to the forefront and return only if he's hurt by the enemy. So this is all explained. Then it's mentioned about the Vaishyas. The members of the mercantile communities are specially advised to protect cows. Go Raksha. They had why? Cow protection means increasing the milk production, namely curd and butter. Agriculture and distribution of the foodstuffs are the primary duties of the mercantile. So this is basically required. We have to concentrate on the agriculture and distribution of the foodstuff by the prime. As the Kshatriyas are given charge of the protection of citizens, Vaishyas were given the charge of protection of animals. Very profound statement. Kshatriyas were given the charge of protection of the citizens. Kshatriyas are supposed to take care of the citizens. Now, what are Vaishyas supposed to do? Vaishyas are supposed to take care of the animals. Animals are never meant to be killed. Killing of animals is a symptom of barbarian society. This is what Prabhupada mentions in the purport. Then we have Shudras. Now, Shudras, very important part of it, is the productive energy, the people who are working hard. What are they working for? They are working in the industries. Is the industry giving them food? No. Is the industry giving them, the maintenance of survival? No. So what they are supposed to do? They are supposed to take care of producing rice, wheat, grains, milk, fruit, vegetables. These are all things they are supposed to do. So this should not be a standard civilization, because people who are there, the industrialists, we have gone from agriculture-based industry to a industrial-based industry, and then we are suffering. There are so many number of unemployment, so many things are happening. The Shudra class is less intelligent and should have no independence, because these people, they do not have that kind of intelligence. So the Shudras are to be put in that particular slot where they are given the menial jobs, and they should serve the three other members, three other classes of the society. The Shudra class can attain all comforts of life simply by rendering services. So when the Shudra class will serve the rest of the classes, three higher classes, they will be getting benefited, and they'll get the all the comforts. And there are other instructions like, if a person is not intelligent, if he gets wine, woman, and what will he do? Whatever money he gets he will just waste on them, because he doesn't have that intelligence, what and how these resources are to be used. The Shudra must first of all satisfied by sumptuous food and clothing. The Shudras must, the three classes, they should take care of the Shudras, and Shudras must be they should be satisfied by sumptuous foods and clothing. In this age, so many functions are held by, we know that, we have read about that. What are Varnas and Ashramas, and what is the purpose? The Varnas are classification of different occupations, and Ashramas dharma is to gradually progress on the path of self-realization. So this classification is required so that, there is a gradual progress of on the path of self-realization. The main purpose of ashram dharma is to awaken knowledge and detachment. So if the people, they are classified according to the guna and karma, and they are put in these particular slots, in the 4 slots which can be identified, then they will, the knowledge will be awakened, and they will gradually go for detachment of all this material attachments what they have. So then brahmacharya ashrama is given. Brahmacharya ashrama is the training ground for the prospective candidates. In this ashrama, it is instructed that this material world is not actually the home of living being. So first and foremost, a very profound statement is mentioned in the brahmacharya ashram, that this world is not the place to stay. This material world is a toilet. Then second one, the conditioned soul under material bondage are presence of matter, and therefore self-realization is the ultimate aim. This also is mentioned in the brahmacharya ashram, and they are trained that way, that self-realization is the ultimate aim of life. Then the whole system of ashram and dharma is a means to detachment. So right from brahmacharya ashram, it has been trained. The person who is in the brahmacharya ashram, he will learn how to get detached. So all these 3 things will be instructed to him, and gradually, when he from the brahmacharya ashram, if he is not able to fulfill these qualities, and he is one who fails to assimilate this spirit of detachment, fully detachment, he is unable to do, then he is allowed to enter into the family life. That means he becomes a grahastha. But now, the most important thing is that if sannyasis are there, if vanaprasthas are there, and if brahmacharis are there, who is going to support all the 3 of them? So there, the most important comes is grahastha ashram. The grahastha ashram, we will see that in the grahastha ashram, they are supposed to give 50% of whatever they are gaining, whatever they are earning. So 50% goes, and the rest of the 3 classes will be taken care. Household life is for one who is attached, and the vanaprastha ashram order of life are for those who are detached. The one who is attached to the material world, or who are to his senses, or all these things, but gradually will go ahead and get detached. Therefore, them, there's a household, that is, grahastha ashram. For vanaprastha and sannyasa is for the one who is detached. The brahmacharya ashram is the beginning. The brahmacharya is especially meant for training both the attached and the detached. Now, whosoever is attached is the grahasthas, and detached are the vanaprastha sannyasis. They are trained in the brahmacharya ashram when they are going. So this is explained, and then we go for the shloka number 1927. Dhana dharma, raja dharma, moksha dharman, vibhagasha, Sri dharman, bhagavad dharma, samasa vyasa yogataha. Can somebody read the translation and purport of shloka 27?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Can I read?
Yes, please.
Purport and translation and purport by Prabhupada. Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Jai Shri Prabhupada.
He then explained by division acts of charity, the pragmatic activities of a king, and activities for salvation. Then
Then he described.
Just a moment, Prabhuji.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know where it is gone. Some. Yeah. He described the duties of women and devotees, both briefly and extensively. Purport. To give charity is one of the householder's main functions, and he should be prepared to give in charity at least 50% of his hard-earned money. A brahmachari or student should perform sacrifices. A householder should give charity, and a person in the retired life or in the renounced order should practice penances and austerities. Those are the general functions of all the ashramas, or orders of life on the path of self-realization. In the brahmachari life, the training is sufficiently imparted so that one may understand that the world as property belongs to the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead. No one, therefore, can claim to be the proprietor of anything in the world. Therefore, in the life of a householder, which is a sort of license for sex enjoyment, and one must give in charity for the service of the Lord. Everyone's energy is generated or borrowed from the reservoir of energy of the Lord. Therefore, the resultant actions of such energy must be given to the Lord in the shape of transcendental loving service for Him. As the rivers draw water from the sea through the clouds and again go down to the sea. Similarly, our energy is borrowed from the supreme source, the Lord's energy, and it must return to the Lord. That is the perfection of our energy. The Lord, therefore, in the Bhagavad Gita 9.27 says that whatever we do, whatever we undergo as penance, whatever we sacrifice, whatever we eat, or whatever we give in charity must be offered to Him, the Lord. That is the way of utilizing our borrowed energy. When our energy is utilized in that way, our energy is purified from the contamination of material inebrities. And thus, we become fit for our original natural life of service to the Lord. Raj Dharma is a great science, unlike modern diplomacy. Unlike modern diplomacy for political supremacy, the kings were trained systematically to become munificent and not merely be tax collector. They were trained to perform different sacrifices only for the prosperity of the subjects. To lead the prajas to the attainment of salvation was a great duty of the king. The father, the spiritual master, and the king are not to become irresponsible in the matter of leading their subjects to the path of ultimate liberation from high birth, death, disease, and old age. When these primary duties are properly discharged, there is no need of government of the people by the people. In the modern days, the people in general occupy administration by the strength of manipulated votes, but they are never trained in the primary duties of the king, and that is also not possible for everyone. Under the circumstances, the untrained administrators play havoc to make the subjects happy in all respects. On the other hand, these untrained administrators gradually become rogues and thieves and increase the taxation to finance a top-heavy administration that is useless for all purposes. Actually, the qualified brahmanas are meant to give directions to the kings for proper administration in terms of the scriptures like the Manu Samhita and Dharma Shastra of Parashara. A typical king is the idol of the people in general. And if the king is pious, religious, chivalrous, and munificent, the citizens generally follow him. Such a king is not a lazy, senseless person living at the cost of the subjects, but alert always to kill thieves and dacoits. The pious king were not merciful to dacoits and thieves in the name of non-essential ahimsa, non-violence. The thieves and dacoits were punished in an exemplary way so that in the future no one would dare commit such nuisance in an organized form. Such thieves and dacoits were never meant for as administration as they are now. The taxation law was simple. There was no force. There was no force, no encroachment. The king had a right to take 1/4 of the production made by the subject. The king had a right to claim 1/4 of one allotted wealth. One would never grudge parting with it because due to the pious king and religious harmony, there was enough natural wealth, namely grains, fruits, flowers, silk, cotton, milk, jewels, minerals, etc. And therefore, no one was materially unhappy. The citizens were rich in agriculture and animal husbandry, and therefore they had enough grains, fruit, and milk without any artificial needs of soaps and toilets, cinemas, and bars. The king had to see that the reserved energy of human was properly utilized. Human energy is meant not exactly for fulfilling animal propensities, but for self-realization. The whole government was specifically designed to fulfill this particular purpose. As such, the king had to select properly the cabinet minister, but not on the strength of voting background. The ministers, the military commanders, and even the ordinary soldiers were all selected by personal qualification, and the king had to supervise them properly before they were appointed to their respective posts. The king was especially vigilant to see that the tapasvis or persons who sacrificed everything for disseminating spiritual knowledge were never disregarded. The king knew that well that the Supreme Personality of Godhead never tolerates any insult to his unalloyed devotees. Such tapasvis were trusted leader even of the rogues and thieves, who would never disobey the orders of tapasvis. The king would give special protection to illiterates, the helpless, and widows of the state. Defense measures were arranged previous to any attack by the enemies. The taxing process was easy, and it was not meant for squandering, but was for strengthening the reserve fund. The soldiers were recruited from all parts of the world, and they were trained for special duties. As far as salvation is concerned, one has to conquer the principles of lust, anger, unlawful desires, avarice, and bewilderment. To get freedom from anger, one should learn how to forgive. To be free from the unlawful desires, one should not make plans. By spiritual culture, one is able to conquer sleep. By tolerance, only can one conquer desires and avarice. Disturbances from various diseases can be avoided by regulated diets. By self-control, one can be free from false hopes, and money can be saved by avoiding undesirable association. By practice of yoga, one can control hunger, and worldliness can be avoided by culturing and the knowledge of impermanence. Dizziness can be conquered by rising up, and false arguments can be conquered by factual ascertainments. Talkativeness can be avoided by gravity and silence, and by prowess one can avoid fearfulness. Perfect knowledge can be obtained by self-cultivation. One must be free from lust, avarice, anger, dreaming, etc. to actually attain the path of salvation. As far as the women class are concerned, they are accepted as a power of inspiration for men. As such, women are more powerful than men. Mighty Julius Caesar was controlled by Cleopatra. Such powerful women are controlled by shyness. Therefore, shyness is important for women. Once this control valve is loosened, women can create havoc in society by adultery. Adultery means production of unwanted children known as Varna Sankara, who disturb the world. The last item taught by Bhishma Dev was the process of pleasing the Lord. We are all eternal servants of the Lord, and when we forget the essential part of our nature, we are put into material condition of life. The simple process of pleasing the Lord for the householders especially is to install the deity of the Lord at home. By concentrating on the deity, one may progressively go on with the daily routine work. Worshipping the deity at home, serving the devotee, hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, residing in a holy place and chanting the holy name of the Lord are all inexpensive items by which one can please the Lord. Thus, the subject matter was explained by the grandfather to his grandchildren. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sumati Mataji. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's a wonderful explanation, and for reading of this purport, it's so big. Okay, because of the time constraint, I just like to highlight few of the points from this which I can understand. Like 4 ashramas, how they were managed. So this purport, explains to give charity is one of the householder's main function, and he should be prepared to give charity at least 50% of his hard-earned money. Now that this 50% is distributed for brahmachari ashram, for vanaprastha, and for sannyas. So in this way, the householder or the grihastha ashram supports all the 3 ashrams. A brahmachari student should perform sacrifices, householder should give charity, and a person in the retired or in the renounced order should practice penances and austerities. Those are general functions of all the ashramas of order of life on the path of self-realization. This will help them to get into, okay. Now, this was one of the things. What used to be the activity of the kings? We have seen in this purport what activities the king used to do, what taxations are there, and the king had the right to take 1/4 of the production made by the subject as a tax. And of course, when there was a drought or something, the king used to support from the granary what he used to have. The king had a right to claim 1/4 of once allotted wealth. Why? Because for his praja. So these are the instructions given for the king. Now, how the king used to treat the devotees and tapasvis. So they used to say even the tapasvis, where king knew that, the king knew well that the Supreme Personality of Godhead never tolerates any insult to his unalloyed devotees. So king was also well versed with the scriptures, and he knew that. So these are the qualities of king, which is the important point here is how to get salvation. This is a very important point which has been mentioned in this purport. As far as the salvation, and see, Prabhupada has mentioned in such a nice manner how these shortcomings in our life, Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moh, Mad, Matsarya, how to get over them. In just one word or two words or one sentence, he has explained in such a nice manner. So this is one which we should be highlighting and keeping it for our, for retaining from this class, to get free from and must. I just made a chart out of it. To get free from anger, learn to forgive. To get free from desires, learn not to make plans and learn to tolerate. To get free from sleep, take to spiritual culture. To get free from diseases, have regulated diet. To get free from false hope, control, self-control. To get free from, you must, how to control hunger? By yoga. How to know the worldliness, how to get away from the worldliness? By knowledge of impermanence. That means the world is impermanent. So knowing that, you will be getting away with the worldly affairs. How to, get free from the false argument? Factual ascertainments. How to get away from the habit of talkativeness? Gravity and silence. How to get perfect knowledge? By self-cultivation. You have to cultivate the self now. You have to cultivate the knowledge by yourself, by taking the ashray of a guru. The importance of women and how can they be controlled. So here also that the women, they are the inspirations for the men. That's 100% true. But at the same time, these women have to be controlled by what? So it's shyness. The women, such powerful women are controlled by shyness. Therefore, shyness is important for women. And we see that, now this guna of the women is gradually getting evaded. How to please the Lord? The most important of this purport is how to please the Lord has been explained in such a nice manner. Bhishma Dev mentioned it, Srila Prabhupada mentions that, in the purport, the simple process of pleasing the Lord for the householder especially is to install the deity of the Lord at home. By concentrating on deity, one may progressively go on with the daily routine work, worshipping the deity at home, serving the devotees. See, all these points are very nice to worshipping the deities, then serving the devotees, then you have hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, which we are doing now, residing in a holy place and chanting the holy names of the Lord. All are inexpensive items by which one can please the Lord. Thus, the subject matter was explained by grandfather to his grandchild, which is by Bhishma Dev to Yudhishthira Maharaj. So now we go to shloka number 28. Dharmartha kama moksham cha sahopayam yatha mune nana kya netihaseshu varnayam asatattvavit. Then he described the occupational duties of different orders and statuses of life, citing instances from history, for he was himself well acquainted with the truth. Now, the Srila Prabhupada answers, what should one learn from the incidences mentioned in the literature such as Puranas, Mahabharata, Ramayana. We are simply concerned with the instructive lessons of such incidents. The instructions which are given in this kind of incidents, we should learn from them. Example of Hiranyakashipu, that Lord has answer to each and every situation, and you cannot outsmart the Lord. So this is what my understanding was. Then we have shloka number 1929. Dharmam parvadhatastasya sakala pratyupasthitha yo yoginas chanda mrityor vanchitas tuttarayana. Can somebody read the translation and the purport, please?
Sure, Prabhu. While Bhishmadeva was describing occupational duties, the sun's course ran into the northern hemisphere. This period is desired by mystics who die at their will. Purport. The perfect yogis or mystics can leave the material body at their own sweet will at a suitable time and go to suitable planet desired by them. In the Bhagavad Gita 8.24, it is said that self-realized souls who have exactly identified themselves with the interest of the Supreme Lord can generally leave the material body during the time of the fire god's effulgence and when the sun is in the northern horizon, and thus achieve the transcendental sky. In the Vedas, these times are considered auspicious for quitting the body, and they are taken advantage of by the expert mystics who have perfected the system. Perfection of yoga means attainment of such supermental states as to be able to leave the material body as desired. Yogis can also reach any planet within no time without a material vehicle. The yogis can reach the highest planetary system within a very short time, and this is impossible for the materialist. Even attempting to reach the highest planet will take millions of years at a speed of millions of miles per hour. This is a different science, and Bhishmadeva knew well how to utilize it. He was just waiting for the suitable moment to quit his material body, and the golden opportunity arrived when he was instructing his noble grandsons, the Pandavas. He thus prepared himself to quit his body before the exalted Lord Sri Krishna, the pious Pandavas, and the great sages headed by Bhagavan Vyasa, etc. All great souls.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu, for reading the purpose and the translation. Okay, here it is mentioned, while Bhishma Deva was describing the occupational duties, the sun's course ran into the northern hemisphere, Uttarayana. This period is described by mystics who die at their will. So this is, while just going through this purport, the last part of it, even attempting to reach the highest planet will take millions of years at a speed of millions of miles per hour. This is a different science, and Bhishma Deva knew well how to utilize this. See how many years back Srila Prabhupada had written this purpose, and I was just connecting this. The other day I was seeing Kaun Banega Crorepati on the TV. You know, my son, he loves to see that. So in that, there was a guy who was a participant, and he was explaining about the galaxy. And in that, he mentioned that there are some of the planets, they are so far away, we have to use so many powerful binoculars to see them. And when the host, he asked him the question, how long it would take to reach such kind of planets. So he at that time mentioned that at the speed of millions of miles per hour, it will take millions of years to reach there. So, you know, the host was flabbergasted to hear the answer. But now see, when we are reading the Bhagavatam and we are reading Srila Prabhupada's purpose, how clearly it is mentioned that these things exist and they were known to our ancestors who have definitely, you know, explained this to us. Hence, Srimad Bhagavatam is to be studied, not read. It has to be studied very deeply to understand. And Srila Prabhupada's purpose, they are amazing, amazing. So, okay, now we go to shloka number 30. Okay. Okay. Okay, now is Tadapasam Hrita Griha Sahasranir Vimukta Sangam Man Adi Purushe Krishna Lasat Pitapate Chaturbhuje Purasthite Milita Drik Vyadharayat. Translations. Thereupon, that man who spoke of different subjects with thousands of meanings and who fought on thousands of battles and protected thousands of men stopped speaking, and being completely freed from all the bondage, withdrew his mind from everything else and fixed his wide open eyes upon the original personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who stood before him four-handed, dressed in yellow garment that glittered and shined. Now, from this purport, if you go to the purport, can somebody read the purport?
I'll read. In
Please.
the momentous hour of leaving his material body, Bhishmadev was set the glorious example concerning the important function of the human form of the life. The subject matter which attracts the dying man becomes the beginning of his next life. Therefore, if one is absorbed in thoughts of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, he is sure to go back to the Godhead without any doubt. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 8.5.50. And whoever at the time of death quits the body, remembering me alone at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. Whether whatever state of being one remembers, when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna, and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of the fighting with your activities dedicated to me, and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt. He also meditates on the Supreme Personality of the Godhead. His mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path. He, O Partha, Arjuna, is sure to reach me. One should meditate upon the Supreme Person as the one who knows everything, as he is the oldest, he who is the oldest, who is the controller, who is the smaller than the smallest, who is the maintainer of everything, who is beyond all material conception, who is inconceivable, and who is always a person. He is luminous like the sun, and being transcendental is beyond this material nature. One who at the time of death fixes his life here between the eyebrows and in full devotion engages himself in remembering the Supreme Lord will certainly attain to the Supreme Personality of the Godhead. Persons learned in the Vedas who utter Omkar and who are the great sages in the renounced order enter into Brahman. Desiring such perfection, one practice celibacy. I should now explain to you this process by which one may attain salvation. The yogic situation is that the detachment from all sensual engagements, closing all the doors of the senses and fixing the mind on the heart and life where at the top of the head, one establishes himself in the yoga. After being situated in this yoga practice and vibrating the secret syllable Om, the supreme combination of letters, if one thinks of the supreme personality of the Godhead and quits the body, he will certainly reach the spiritual planets. For one who remembers me without deviation, I am easy to obtain, O son of Partha, because of his constant engagement in devotional service. After attaining me, the great souls who are the yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world, which is full of miseries, because they have attained the highest perfection. Shri Bhisham Dev attained the perfection of quitting his body at will and was fortunate enough to have Lord Krishna, the object of his attention, personally present at the time of his death. He therefore fixed his open eyes upon him. He wanted to seek Shri Krishna for a long time out of his spontaneous love for him. Because he was a pure devotee, he had very little to do with the detailed performance of yogic principles. Simple bhakti yoga is enough to bring about perfection. Therefore, the ardent desire of Vishnu Dev was to see the person of Lord Krishna. the most lovable object, and by the grace of the Lord, Shri Bhishma Dev had this opportunity at the last stage of breathing. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you very much. See now, this particular purport of this shloka, there is a question here: how did Bhishma Dev leave his body? In the momentous, the answer is in the momentous hour of the leaving his material body, Bhishma Dev set the glorious example concerning the important functions of the human form of life. The subject matter which attracts the dying man becomes the beginning of this next life. Very profound statement it is mentioned here. The subject matter which attracts the dying man, when a person is dying, if he is thinking about something, that becomes the beginning of his next life. So this is what is mentioned here. Therefore, if one is absorbed, so the Prabhupada mentioned the purport, therefore, if one is absorbed in the thoughts of Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, he's sure to go back to Godhead without any doubt. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 8.5 until 8.15. So I just wanted to give some synopsis of this Bhagavad Gita chapter 8. The title of the chapter is Attaining the Supreme, which in Hindi means Bhagavad Prapti. Now, just if you understand, what is the name of the chapter 7? Can anybody say that? What's the name? Bhagavad Gita chapter 7's name, title?
Bhagavad Darshan.
That means
Bhagavad Gyan.
Bhagavad Gyan. Bhagavad Gyan. That means knowledge of absolute, right? So before attaining the Supreme, see how it is very nicely in sequence. 7th chapter is knowledge of absolute. And then the 8th chapter is attaining the Supreme. So if you want to attain the Supreme, you should have the knowledge of the Supreme first. So this is the sequence. So now, first you have the knowledge of the 7th chapter, then you'll be able to attain the Supreme. So while attaining the Bhagavad Prapti, that's the name in Hindi. So acronym for this chapter, as Subal Das mentioned in his initial talk, the acronym for this chapter, attaining the Supreme, is DEAD, D-E-A-D, which is Mrit. Mrit yani dead. So when you have the knowledge of the Lord, you become Amrit. That means you become Amar. Okay. So now acronym DEAD, Amrit, Mrit. So now D stands for doubts. So in this chapter, in the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, there are doubts which are raised by Arjuna in front of Krishna from 1 to 4. In shloka number 1 to 4 of the 8th chapter, there are doubts which are raised by Arjuna. Then E stands for end of life. So end of life, that about this topic is covered under shloka number 5 to 8. That means at the end of life, how and what should one do. Then A stands for attaining the Supreme, which is from shloka number 9 to 22 of 8th chapter. And last is devotion. D stands for devotion. So 23 to 28 of this 8th chapter talks about devotion. So to go to the material, to go to the spiritual world, one has to die. That's the reason the acronym for this chapter is mentioned as DEAD. There are some exceptions also, because Dhruv Maharaj and Sant Tukaram, there are a few examples who went in this very body to the spiritual world. So this is basically it. Now in this, if you see, there are doubts which have been raised by Arjuna. It's the acharyas, they say that doubting is a function of intelligence. If you doubt, if you have some questions, this is very important. At no point Krishna chastises Arjuna for asking so many questions. No, Arjuna or Krishna always clarifies the doubts. So in this section of Arjuna is asking the following 8 questions. That means from 1 to 4, he's asking what questions? What is Brahman? What is the self? What are the fruitive activities? What is the material manifestation? What are the demigods? Who is the Lord of sacrifice? How does he live in the body? How can those engaged in devotional service know you? That means Krishna at the time of death. How can one attain the spiritual destination at the time of death? These are all the questions which are asked by Arjuna. end of life, which is from 5 to 8. Suppose you are going to watch a movie and you meet somebody who has just saw it. You'll never guess what happens. They say, before they have even finished that segment, you will interrupt them and stop them. After all, knowing the end spoils the whole film. Similarly, for those engaged in the worldly pursuits, hearing about or contemplating the end, death is most stirring reflection. It spoils the movie of life. Once you talk about so hence, whenever you raise this topic of death to anybody, the people they will say, "No, why you are so pessimistic? Why are you talking about death? Life, we are living, so just ignore this topic," and they just divert you from there. So, but the fact is, for one who is born, death is certain, and for one who dies, birth is around the corner. Krishna explains that throughout the life, the consciousness and the objective goals that one has aspired for determines one's next situation. For those who remember Krishna, reach his kingdom. This is what meant. Attaining the supreme, this world is created to give lessons. When one is frustrated, he realizes the happiness. This was the beginning of our topic also. Like when one is frustrated. Now, who was frustrated? Yudhishthira was frustrated and he was feeling so bad. So he realizes that, and he has to go and console. He has to go and ask Bhishma Dev to, how he can get out of this troublesome situation. So once he realizes, he also realizes that we are the spiritual being in this incompatible situation of the material world. He also realizes that the material world is always changing, place of misery, whereas the spiritual world is full of eternal bliss. Different spiritualities take different paths so as to reach the supreme destination, which is point of no return. Then in the verses 21 to 28 of 8th chapter, the Lord explains about the devotion. So similarly, if you see here, Sri Bhishma Dev, the object of his attention personally presents the time of death. Bhishma Dev attained the perfection of quitting his body at will and was fortunate enough to have Lord Krishna, the object of his attention, personally present the time of death. He had very little to do with the detailed performance of yogic principles. See how clearly Srila Prabhupada has mentioned. Bhishma Dev had very little to do with the detailed performance of yogic principles. No yogic principles are required. Simple bhakti yoga is enough to bring about perfection. Therefore, the ardent desire of Bhishma Dev was to see the person of Lord Krishna, the most lovable object, and by the grace of Lord, Shri Bhishma Dev had his opportunity at the last stage of his breathing. Now, the last shloka is 1 minute. Vishuddhaya dharanaya hata sughas tat iksayaivasu gata yudhaspara nivratta sarvendriya vritti vibhramas tustava janyam visrajan janardhanam. Can somebody read the purport and the translation, please?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, I'll read.
Yes, Prabhu.
Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada, Jai Srila Prabhupada. By pure meditation, looking at Lord Sri Krishna, he at once was freed from all material inauspiciousness and was relieved of all bodily pains caused by the arrow wounds. Thus, all the external activities of his senses at once stopped, and he prayed transcendentally to the controller of all living beings while quitting his material body. Purport. The material body is a gift of the material energy, technically called illusion. Identification with the material body is due to the forgetfulness of our eternal relationship with the Lord. For a pure devotee of the Lord like Bhishma Dev, this illusion was at once removed as soon as the Lord arrived. Lord Krishna is like the sun, and the illusionary external material energy is like darkness. In the presence of sun, there is no possibility that darkness can stand. Therefore, just on the arrival of Lord Krishna, all the material contamination was completely removed, and Bhishma Dev was thus able to be transcendently situated by stopping the activities of the impure senses in collaboration with the matter. The soul is originally pure, and so also the senses. By material contamination, the senses assume the role of imperfection and impurity. By revival of contact with the Supreme Pure, Lord Sri Krishna, the senses again become freed from material contaminations. Bhishmadev attained all these transcendental conditions prior to his leaving the material body because of Lord's presence. The Lord is the controller and benefactor of all the living beings. That is the verdict of the Vedas. He is supreme eternity and living entity amongst all the eternal living beings. And he alone provides all the necessities for all kinds of living beings. Thus, he provided all facilities to fulfill the transcendental desires of his great devotee Bhishmadev, who prayed as follows. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you for reading the purport and the translation. So now here through this, we can understand for a pure devotee of the Lord Shri Bhishmadev, this illusion was at once removed as soon as the Lord arrived. Lord Krishna is like the sun and the illusionary external energy is like darkness. So I was hearing one of the lectures in which how to get away with Maya, because Maya is there and it's always trying to trap us and trying to, take us away from Krishna, because that's our job. Now, how to get away with Maya? So an example was shared that if about a fish in the pond, there in the pond there was a fish, small fish, which was very happy, and the rest of the fishes, small fish was very happy, but the rest of the fishes were very, very perplexed. They were in a dire situation, as every day there used to be a fisherman who used to come and cast his nets in the morning. Now, in the morning, this fisherman used to cast the nets, and in the evening he used to come and take the nets and collect all the fishes that were entrapped in the net. Now, this small fish was very happy. She was always happy, and the rest of the fishes who were there in the pond, they were scared. They were used to say that, oh, how can we get out of this? We are always in such a situation that tomorrow if this fisherman comes and casts his nest, we will be there trapped, and we will die. So this kind of situation was there for the rest of the fishes, but the small fish was very happy. She was moving around in the pond. So these are all fishes, they went and asked, what's the reason of your being so happy? Aren't you afraid? So this fish said, no, I am not. She said, why? Aren't you afraid of death? Aren't you afraid of this fisherman who's going to come and cast his nest and we are getting trapped? So this small fish, she said, no, I am not. So on the repeated asking of the rest of the fishes, the small fish said, you know why I'm not afraid of this fisherman? So they were inquisitive to know the answer. They asked why, what was the reason? So this small fish said that whenever this fisherman comes, he casts his net, I just run and go and be around his feet. I'm just around the feet of this fisherman. Hence, he will cast the net all over in that area of the pond, and whosoever is there in the pond, they will get entrapped. So if you want to live, you have to catch the feet of the fisherman or be around the feet. He will never cast his net on his own feet. So this is how I'm saved and I'm happy. Similarly, this is an example from which we understand if we want to get away with Maya, we have to catch the feet of Lord Shri Krishna, and Lord Krishna will always be there to take all the troubles from us. But we have to be sincere like the small fish always going to the feet of fishermen. Similarly, we have to go and get hold of Lord Krishna, and this we can get the guidance from our seniors. We can get the guidance from a guru. We can get the guidance from the scriptures, how to do that, how to be submissively render our services towards the Lord. And in this way, we can be saved from the trap of Maya, and we will be always in the shelter of Lord Shri Krishna. Hare Krishna. With this, I end the class. If anybody has some suggestions, any discussions, any points to be added, please do so. Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, thank you very much. The class was wonderful, but it will take time for us to digest everything.
Hare Krishna. I was also like, when I was going to the class, going to the purpose, it's amazing. Believe me, like self-study and thank you so much, Subal Prabhu, for giving me this opportunity, because otherwise I wouldn't have read this many number of shlokas and the purpose in detail, so that I first let me understand, so that I can explain it to like I can try and explain to the people, the devotees who are there in the group. So it was thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. And the other thing is, there are so many points. The purports are amazing. We have to study them. We have to not read them, study them, and try to imbibe the qualities which are mentioned. And we have to become simple, as it was there in one of the 9 qualities which Bhishma Dev says, that you have to be simple, and to become simple is not that simple. To become simple is not that simple, and he has given the 8 qualities which we have to follow to make ourselves simple.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you. Beautiful class. Oh, excellent. Thank you so much. And
Hare Krishna.
anybody has any question? We can see a new participant, Sumati Mataji.
This Mataji, like she was there with us in Ayodhya Yatra, and
Okay.
like she said that in Prabhu, if there are any classes, you can enroll me, or just get me connected. So yesterday in the evening, without asking you, I just connected her.
Oh, fantastic.
And she
can you post your mobile number or WhatsApp number in this chat, so I can add you to the group also? Mataji, you're there?
I'll share the number, Prabhu.
You share the yeah.
I'll share the number. Mataji she is very good in Sanskrit.
Fantastic.
So we had a good chat. Yeah, we had a good chat, and during that she mentioned that, Prabhu, I wish to have and she's from Sharjah, I suppose.
Okay.
She said that to enroll. I said, okay, no problem. So yesterday when you sent me the link, I forwarded to her, and she was enthusiastic, and that's the reason she has joined. And she was there until now. I do not know whether she has moved out or not.
No, she is still there, but maybe
probably
on mute. Yeah. So, Prabhu, thank you a lot. Thank you so much. Wish to see you again very soon. And
I also apologize for taking longer than the guided time of 11:30.
We didn't realize
but the purpose was so big, and I had to rush at the end.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
It's our pleasure, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Dandavats, Prabhu. Dandavats.
We will end the session here.